All right, back on the other side of On Cue, Rich Quinones here. Lloyd Vance, kind enough to join us, NFL insider, and of course, host of Lloyd Vance's Insider Football 1029 The Game, part of the Broad Street South Network. We got into some of the marquee names out there with the running back, quarterback position, I should say, before we hit the bottom of the hour. Now with the running back. So we saw Pollard now jettisoning the Dallas Cowboys, going to Tennessee. Tennessee obviously moving on from Derrick Henry. You got DeAndre Swift, underutilized, if you will, with Philadelphia, signs a deal with Chicago. Maybe you can look at it this couple ways. Does that mean Fields is going to stay, or you looking with Caleb Williams and a young quarterback's best friend is always the running back? And then you got the reports now coming out of nowhere that Saquon Barkley and the Philadelphia Eagles are not even flirting. It's a little heavy petting going on right now. But we'll start with Pollard going to Tennessee, Swift going to Chicago. Initial thoughts and reactions to those two moves, respectively.
We should have probably hit this right on the top. The salary cap has gone up to $255.4 million this season, up $30 million from last season. So a lot of teams have a lot of money, and they're deciding, who was really worth it, and they want to bring these guys in. Hopefully you go more of a value guy, but some of these owners, they want to make that big splash Q now. When you look at Tony Pollard, Tennessee, that this could be a good fit for him. Derrick Henry had his opportunities there, got a little long in the tooth probably, and he was paid to, right up there. McCaffrey is number one and number two in terms of pay, and this is a solid investment contract for them. Tony Pollard, 3 year, $24 million. The guy catch the ball out of the backfield and also move the change as well. So, they have a new coach coming in there, and there's somebody that they can build around. But as you're seeing, these running backs, their contracts are going to be around that $8 million range. You're not going to see a lot of these big bank deals that we used to see in the past. Christian McCaffrey's contract, where he makes about $13 to $14 million a season, will stay as the high water mark, and then they're going to go for a running back that fits their best situation. Swift, that was interesting because you wondered, did the Eagles get the hometown situation and bringing him back, and he looked good early part of season Q, but I heard he had some pass pickup deficiencies, and there were a couple things that the team didn't like, so they're moving in a new direction. Obviously, it is exciting to hear in terms of Eagles fans, Saquon Barkley coming over. There's so many Eagles/Penn State people in the area where I am, and they'd like to see him on the Eagles. But I'll ask you as a Giants guy, does he have a lot left, and what do you think in terms of the contract?
Well, two quick things on the Swift, and then I'll answer that. So $8 million a year
Yep.
for running backs, pretty much like $40 million a year for a
Yep.
quarterback, and he was underutilized. We know that. And they just always went away from the run at the most inopportune time. You got to get him 20, 25 touches a game. I think he can carry that load. Listen, as far as Saquon Barkley, I can tell you this. I kind of joke with a couple of my buddies, have fun when he, steps off the field on third down. I mean, he's an injury-prone back. He's a great talent when healthy, but man, if he were to sign with the Philadelphia Eagles, and I know business is business, do not expect any Giant fan to be happy. I mean, you just don't do that. You don't sign with a bitter rival. And part of me is like, go ahead, let the Eagles waste that money. The other part of me is like, come on, man, are you serious? You're talking about down the turnpike, a bitter rival, a team that you were trying to beat over the last 4, 5, 6 years, can't get over that hump, and now you're going to jettison and jump them. And the other thing is, to me, didn't the Eagles kind of have a back like Saquon Barkley, and they just didn't utilize him? And oh, by the way, he just signed with Chicago. Like, I think Swift is just as talented as Saquon Barkley, and Saquon Barkley is never healthy. And that's the one issue I have. I'm looking at some of these potential numbers. I mean, can it also be a situation where he's using this smokescreen as some leverage to see if the Giants turn around and pay him? Like, I can say this. I remember years ago being a Yankees fan, that Boston was getting ready to try to sign Bernie Williams back in '98, I think it was. You're talking about the Boston Red Sox and the New York Yankees, and Steinbrenner was like, absolutely not, man. We will not allow this to happen. Now, I'm not saying it's to that level, but I'm seeing right now on X. I mean, people are coming out saying a offer has been made per his agent. I honestly, I don't know what to believe. I'm trying to think of, the numbers. If some people are reporting 3 years, 30 million, 22 million guaranteed. If you look at where the Giants were, what were they at? 11, 12, which, 3 years. I mean, even at 10, you're looking at $30 million. I mean, it was the same type. Maybe he just wants that guaranteed money and that security. And I understand that, but I'm trying to think where the Giants were so far off. If he signs for 13 to 14, then I guess you can say the market's doing exactly what we expect it to do, right? So I don't know. Look, at this point, man, your guess is as good as mine. Why be pissed? I won't be pissed. But I can tell you this, I'm not going to sit there and cheer for Saquon Barkley to have a great career and resurrect his career with the friggin' Philadelphia Eagles. I just think you're doing all the goodwill, everything that the goodwill that you curried and the favor with the franchise. And you said you want to always be a Giant, and once a Giant, always a Giant, and this, that, the other thing. And then you go sign with the friggin' Philadelphia Eagles. I mean, don't let the door hit you in the ass, man. Seriously.
Yeah, and it's situation Q. It will be weird to see him in Eagles green and instead of playing for the Giants. But in the end, I really think that the Giants decide, Daboll and the rest of the folks up there, Joe Sheen, that there's all right, Saquon's just not worth the amount of money that he's asking for at this point in his career. As you're talking about the injuries and is he on the field enough to earn that type of money? And then we just talk about the overall economics of that running back position. And if the Eagles go ahead and overspend and give him, 10 million, 10, $11 million a season, good luck to them. You know what I mean? He better stay healthy. He better earn that contract. And we'll just see how it goes. Obviously, Q, as we know, if it's a 3-year deal, really, he's probably only going to stay for 2 years of it, because
Yep.
we see so often with these football contracts, it's monopoly money. So it it's going to be interesting. I think if it does get done, it's going to get done early today. They usually don't wait on these things, and he's probably going to look around. He may use that as some leverage,
Well, how
but
do
I
you
think in
not?
the end, yeah,
Ha-
in the end, I think
yeah.
that's the best he's going to do. So, and then he's going to have to decide, does he want to, turn his back on the team that drafted him and the fan base, and then go to Philadelphia? And if he does, I can't wait for that game where the Giants, the Eagles go to the Giants, because that'll be a great atmosphere for
I
a
think,
game.
but I also think let's not get it twisted. You're not getting the same Saquon Barkley you got four
No
or
doubt.
5 years ago, right? But again, that's not to say he's a very good back when he's healthy and he's on the field. And I thought the Texans were going to make a more serious push. CJ Stroud was really trying to push and petition for Saquon Barkley. But man, I'll tell you, as a fan, as a diehard Giant fan, right off the air that bleeds blue, um, man, he pulls this shit, you are dead to me. You are absolutely friggin' you are dead to me. I mean, God forbid you go outside, you get hit by an ice cream truck. You're not even going to get a friggin' funeral arrangement from me. It's not happening. You're not getting flowers. You're not getting a card. You're not getting diddly. It's not happening, man. I'll say a little prayer for you, but other than that, that's it. I'm not even friggin' picking up the phone to check up on your family. No, I can't do it. It just all this crap about doing the right thing and being a Giant and understanding what the franchise means. And then again, the franchise and the fan base even backing you when you're consistently hurt. No.
And Q, that you're an old school type of guy like me. There was loyalty in sports at one time, and players stayed in one place for a while, and they took value contracts. But now these younger players they're like mercenaries, man. They want to get as much as they possibly can before they have to retire. More power to them, and you hope every once in a while you see a situation like Fletcher Cox where he's able to stay with the team that drafted
Yeah.
him have a great career and retire. Kelsey as well. He just did a couple weeks ago. We talked about that, but it's very rare in sports today.
Yeah. I mean, if you think about it, Fletcher Cox, as you just alluded to, again, um, very good career. I mean, I thought there was a 3 to 5 year period where he was the best player with the Philadelphia Eagles, but now you're seeing Fletcher Cox, Jason Kelsey, Brandon Graham's coming back for the 15th year. Lane Johnson is getting older. So you're looking at kind of the war horses with the Philadelphia Eagles and a lot of changes.
Yeah, it's going to be a turnover in that roster, and we know Q. The key thing though is Sirianni ready to be head coach of whoever's left there, and they have to make some changes. Obviously, they changed the two coordinator positions, and they're going to have some new players coming in. But you know, if they trade like Hassan Reddick or some of these other guys are talking about trading, there's going to have to be wholesale changes. And it is a young guy like Jordan Davis and Jalen Carter. Are these young guys ready to step in? I'm just not ready to say they are. So the Eagles, it's going to be interesting to see if they can still compete at the conference level as they have been the last couple of years.
Yeah. And then there's also talk too that, so it looks like that the Eagles have also signed defensive end Bryce Huff, 3 year deal, 51.1 million, former Jet. Once free agency opens, the deal will be make Huff the highest paid non-quarterback undrafted free agent. Wow. In NFL history. Schefter tweeted that out. But then there was talk about maybe jettisoning Josh Sweat. I mean, think about this: Jalen Carter, Jordan Davis, Josh Sweat, Bryce Huff, Nolan Smith. That's Howie is Howie, man. That's a very impressive move, man, because 17 million per year was expected top of his market value.
Right, and Huey's an unknown guy. He's a sending player, and that's what the Eagles like to do. They like to identify these guys, and hopefully it works out for them. Obviously, Howie has had some misses sometimes. Like I think last year with Byard, they make that trade for him, and
Yeah.
he could not get it done. And they signed Edmonds, who they traded for Byard. They signed him from the Steelers. He just couldn't get it done either. So we'll have to wait and see. But right now, that defensive line is looking formidable. Obviously, they're chasing the Niners, who have probably one of the best D lines in the league, and the Eagles, they're going to build from inside out. And I fully expect in the draft they're probably going to take an O lineman or a D lineman.
Yeah, and I think when you look at Reddick and the defensive scheme and how his numbers dropped exponentially, especially the sacks last year, I believe this, the play calling scheme, whatever. You've got him and you got Josh Sweat available to trade. It's going to be interesting to see how the position shakes out. It's hard to see at least one of the starters not returning next season. And I don't know if you go with the younger. I mean, think about it. I mean, and you're bringing it back to veteran Graham as well. So that move tells me, the Huff move tells me, that you're pretty much bracing for either Reddick or Josh Sweat to be traded.
I think they've already made up their minds. Typically, that's the Eagles' MO. If there's smoke, there's fire. They're probably going to figure out a way to get done Hassan Reddick, even if they have to wait until the draft to get it done. Q, it's just wondering. I'm just wondering about that asking price. You know what I mean? Are they going to be able to get a second rounder for him? That's the range I'm thinking that they possibly could get for him. But a lot of teams are going to sit and just say, okay, well, the guy's a malcontent. Let him go to training camp, and these guys will be in a holdout situation, and maybe we can get a little better trade. So right now, he's on the Eagles roster, but it's very tentative.
Yeah, and then you got to look at, again, when you start to look at these run defensive grades, Sweat in 2023, right around 53, 78th overall. Huff, 48.1, outside of the top 100. So I think he's an ascending player. I think he's a very good player, but what they're doing is reshaping their edge rushing position in that room. So, that's the Eagles. It's crazy, the NFC East, when you think about it. I mean, I just go back to, I feel as though the Eagles every single year make all these moves, all these splashes, and some years it hits, some years it doesn't. We go back to the Dream Team. We go back even to last year, 2 years ago. Everyone's talking about Swift and Penny and this and that, the other thing, and all these moves out there making. But yet they're trying to make moves. They're being aggressive. Then conversely, you look at what the Giants are doing, and they have money available. I think the worst thing to happen to the Giants is so this was just, I don't know if this is, let me get some validity here. I don't know if you're seeing anything. Cousins to Atlanta.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's a hard confirm. We can get into that in a moment. But with the Giants, the worst thing that happened to them was over exceeding, right? Exceeding their expectations 2 years ago and winning a playoff game against Minnesota, right? And then turning around and paying the quarterback. I mean, that's the problem right now. I mean, so even if you lose Saquon, now you've got some young wide receivers. You don't have a back. You got a shoddy offensive line. It's going to, I mean, they're going to be a bad team for the next 3, 4, or 5 years. It doesn't matter who the hell they draft. And it really doesn't matter what position. And if you still go by those reports from Eisen basically saying that they are done with Daniel Jones, it's going to be a crazy draft to watch to see how it unfolds and if teams are shuffling and moving up or moving down.
Yeah, well, they can be done with him, but that contract's an albatross around their neck, as you were saying.
I know.
They're stuck with it. And when they gave it to him, you and I both were like, ooh, okay, 2022, that was his magical year. But even last year, we started seeing cracks in the foundation early in the season. He gets hurt. And then they got to figure out a lot here with this Giants roster. I know we kind of looked at them before. They do have some good young receivers, but there are free agents all over their roster. They're going to have to replace, particularly in their offensive line, Q. So, and then you talk about Saquon, and I'm starting to wonder if they're going to go offensive line again. I know your head's going to pop off if they do that, with that pick. But they still got to get that right, and Daboll wants to establish that running game, so he'll find a running back, whether it's in the draft or later on, a more value free agent than Saquon. But they're going to want to establish that offensive line, so it's going to be interesting to see where they go in the draft. I think they're picking sixth, so at the sixth spot, they're probably just going to wait and see what falls to them,
Yeah.
and then go from there. So,
Pardon me.
and
They
there
did.
could be some like Ole Fasano, the great tackle from Penn State. I know he'll be probably there around that spot. And it'll be interesting to see, okay, do they grab another offensive lineman or do they go another direction?
Yeah. Eventually it's got to hit. They were smart and judicious. Joe Shane was getting those extensions done. Dexter Lawrence, very good defensive tackle, all pro. And then Andrew Thomas, an all pro that was banged up last year. All right. As we close it out, again, trying to get confirmation on this Kirk Cousins. I mean, I would have loved for the Giants to kind of go after him, to be quite honest with you, but it does look like it's Kirk Cousins to the Atlanta Falcons. Man, I'll tell you, that's the new era in Atlanta. He can probably play for the next 3 to 5 years. I guess, doesn't want to go back to Minnesota, coming off that major injury. I've always liked Kirk Cousins. You know me. I've been a Captain Kirk fan. I don't care about the primetime record and the issues in the play. I just think he's steady Eddie. I've always been a Cousins fan. This looks like it's a 4-year deal with Atlanta. They've got a tight end. They've got a line. They've got a running back. It doesn't hurt that, you look at their division indoors. Well, same thing with Minnesota, if you will. But for the most part, the stadium, you don't have to worry about too many of those outdoor games. 4-year deal. Don't have the terms of it. Initial thoughts right here, Captain Kirk to Atlanta.
So, I do some work down there, and some of the guys I talked to, they had said that was the guy that they had earmarked, and it's a good situation for him going there. As you said, the offensive line, is okay, but also you have Pitt sitting there at the tight end position. You have Bijan Robinson, running back, Drake London at receiver. So there's a lot of skill position people there. And I think this could be a good landing spot for him. And obviously, like Russell Wilson, he's at that, 34, 35-year-old age range. But, quarterbacks are playing a lot longer today. And they had to do something because Desmond Ritter just was
Horrible.
not the guy. And they have a new coach coming in there. And they wanted to start anew. And hopefully he comes back from this Achilles injury and he's healthy. It happened pretty early in the season. So I'm hearing he'll be ready for training camp. And I think this could be a good fit. But as I always say with free agency, buyer beware, but it looks good right now.
Carolina stinks. They're going through their struggles with a young quarterback. Atlanta won 7 games last year. Tampa just signed Baker Mayfield. They overexceeded. And New Orleans, I think New Orleans, for all the fanfare of signing Carr, it kind of blew up in their face. They went 9-8 as well. So you look at that division, NFC South, and think about it too. You play in New Orleans, dome. You play in Carolina, warm weather. You play in Tampa, warm weather. And then you're back home in Atlanta. So that can work wonders for Kirk Cousins. But you're right. I mean, it's all about, I don't want to say the retread, because now, okay, where does Minnesota go if you think about it? Are they bringing back Dobbs? No. I'm trying to think who else is on that roster right now in Minnesota. I mean, who else? I mean, who the hell else is on their? I'm trying to pull it up. See who their quarterbacks are.
They have Paul, the young quarterback for BYU. He played a couple games last year, started some games for them, and he's
Paul, yeah, and Nick
yeah,
Mullins is
yeah, and so basically the cover's pretty bad. You know what I mean? So they're going to bring somebody in to compete with those guys, probably through the draft. Maybe they get somebody late in the first round because they're picking, deeper in the draft because they still want some games, and it's going to be interesting. They're pick 11, so do they wait and see what falls in? Like a Bo Nix or Michael Penix Jr. And obviously they're not going to get some of the top quarterbacks. Williams, May, and Daniels will be off the board, but there'll be some good young quarterbacks, and they're going to try to build from there. But obviously they're going in a different direction now that they let Kirk Cousins officially go.
Yeah. So the quarterbacks are moving, the running backs are moving. We will know if I will be very aggravated and ticked off in another day or two when we speak again on Q. So, all right. Lloyd Vance, always kind enough to join us. We are brought to you by our good friends over at Play It Again Sports. We'll kind of put a bow on what's going on over the last 24, 48 hours. We'll do that later in the week. Don't forget, check out Lloyd Monday nights, 8 o'clock, I believe, or 7 o'clock.
Yeah, 8 o'clock. We're back on this week. Looking forward
Perfect.
to it. And Javon Offer will be joining
Nice.
me as my co-host tonight. So looking forward to that.
Jovan,
We're going to
yep.
break down free agency.
Good. Jovan's he's a great get. And I told you when things finally slow down during the night for me with the other boxing stuff, I'm jumping on as well. But that's good stuff. That's on Broad Street South, part of 102.9. Give Lloyd a follow at Lloyd Vance on X. Always kind enough to join us on Q on this Monday. Appreciate you, pal.
Thanks for having me on.